the sin of the Egel, after the sin of the golden calf, and that developed into the Beis Hamikdash later on. The way Chazal, the way our sages deal with it, the fact that it goes into such detail about what the materials were and what their measurements were, and meaning these have to be eternal messages, just to give us an idea about construction. What do I need to know about construction for? What's the and what I need to know about all the materials. So obviously there's each word in the Torah, each letter in the Torah, even the crowns on the letters, each thing is an eternal message. So we have to look at it as such. There is a Chazal here that I want to share with you. I think it has tremendous implications. It always bothered me, whenever you have any type of religious or halachic attempt within a community to move the community in a certain direction. For example, the building of a mikveh, or we had now in Encina Tarzana in the last few years, the building of an Eruv, right? The greatest opposition that we'll find to these things come from who? Come from Jews. Right? It's like, it's, you read, it's always Jews leading the forefront against the Eruv, against the mikveh, against the building of the Jewish day school, against the yeshiva. What is it? What's inherent? What is the issue there? Why is there that antagonism? Thank God we don't see it as much living outside of Israel. But in Israel itself, it's so polarized. You see that antagonism. You just, it's palpable. If you live in Israel, why is that? So I want to share with you an idea here, which I think has just as I said, huge implications on all our relationships with our spouse, with our children. The building of the Aron HaKodesh, right, has obviously messages specific to the concept of Torah. Each one of the different vessels give messages in a certain area. And the building of the Aron, as we understand, that's where the Luchos were kept. There was even the Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu kept was there. So obviously it gives message to the Torah. So there's a Gemara in Maseches Yuma that says like this. It goes on the pasuk. We know that at the edge of the Aron there was a rim, and there was a crown that went around the top. It was known as the Zer, Zion Reish. So the pasuk tells us, "Vasisa lo zer zahav saviv." Around the menorah, you will make this crown, this gold crown. Not on the menorah. The around the Aron, you'll make this gold crown. Now, different vessels had it, but this Gemara is going specifically on the one that was done on top of the shulchan. So what does it say? It says you need to have a crown. So Rabbi Yochanan, Tana in the Gemara, he actually was the editor of the Yerushalmi Talmud. He says the following: the word zer, the way it's written in the Torah, is just the letters Zion and Reish. There's no nakudos, there's no punctuation in the Torah, which allows for interpretation. That's why it's not given with punctuation, because it allows for it. So he says that if a person embraces the Torah, if he's zoche, if he merits, and he studies, and he embraces, and he fulfills, So then it's naselo zer. It's a crown. But in lo zacha, which means if a person doesn't, then it becomes zar. What does the word zar mean? Estranged. Strange means that it's like a negative relationship. So the obvious question is, if you merit to have something, so the benefit is that you merited having it. But if you don't merit to have it, what it should be is that then what should be the result is that you don't have it. Not that there should be an antagonistic relationship with it. Right? And that just is obvious. I mean, if you win, you win it. You don't win it, you lose. But you don't. It's not the word that is naselo zar is more than just you don't have it. There is that negative relationship that is created. And the question is why. It's interesting that Rabbi Yochanan's student in Maseches Yuma, his name was Rabbi Lozar. He has a very similar drasha. Where do we have it? That's the beginning of Bereshit. Second parak in the beginning of Bereshit, it says like this. So Adam HaRishon originally was created. Some say it was actually created as a hermaphrodite. It was both male and female in the same being. But there was no Chava. There was no wife. And the Pasuk tells us that Avram saw that Hashem said, "Lo tov heyosa adam levado." It's not good for man to be alone. It's interesting, Rashi, the way Rashi learns this. I mean, the simple reading is God has compassion on man. God Nebuch, he's on his own, he's lonely. It's not how Rashi learns it. Rashi says that if man is left on his own, he's going to get into a lot of trouble. Nasal and Ezer Kenegdo, we need to give him a wife that he doesn't get into that trouble. It's not so, it's not out of compassion, but it's his own self-preservation is that needed to be. But the Pasuk says like this. The Pasuk says, so therefore, lo tov heyosa adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone. E'eselo ezer kenegdo. Right? What is it? What is the translation? E'esa, I will make for him an ezer. I will make for him a helper, kenegdo, corresponding to him. Comes along Rabbi Lazar and says, Zacha, if man merits, then his wife will be for him an ezer. Lo Zacha, then she'll be kenegdo. So again, you have the same relationship. It's there's no middle ground. It's either ezer, she'll be the helpmate, or it's going to be mamash kenegdo. You just see the exact same relationship that's there. So we're trying to figure out why in Torah we see that. It's zer, and it's zacha. It's a zer. It'll be a crown for you if you embrace it and you merit it. Lo zacha. If you don't embrace, then it's zer. It's a negative relationship. We also see with a spouse the same thing. It's either ezer or it's kenegdo. There's no middle ground. There's a pasuk at the end of the Sefer Dvarim. It says, "Umal Hashem es levavcha levav zarecha." That when a person does tshuva, person repents. So it says that Hashem will, it's like surgery, will excise the impurities. He will mal from the word mila. He will cut away the impurities from your heart and also from the heart of your children. He will cut away the impurities, the the abnormalities, those are the things that are impeding, will be cut away from you. It means doing tshuva, a person does tshuva and says, God, listen, I want to repent. Then there's these negative spiritual impediments that we've created within our body. God will help. He will remove it from us, and He'll remove from our children, which is very interesting. Meaning, what is it and our children doing over there? It means we do tshuva and we remove from us. Why is it saying that's a package deal? It's got to be from you, and it's got to be from the children. So I think we see something that's interesting, and it's very clear. One of the major difficulties Baalei Tshuva families have, I've seen families that are repent, is that the children are not on the same page as the parents. The child is thinking, now you're schlepping me to Orange Delight. I remember last month we're going to McDonald's. Like the kids rebel. They have, so you see that process is not completed unless everybody in the family is on the same page. And you have that with spouse too. It becomes a dysfunctional family if, usually the problem is when the husband is going in one direction and the wife is lagging behind. If the wife takes charge, usually what happens, it's more successful. But the bottom line is they have to be on the same page. So you see that when it comes to tshuva, you see that same concept that Umal Hashem is levav zarecha. It has to be a package deal for it to work cohesively without it being dysfunctional. And just one last point, because before we tie this all up together, we learn in Sefer Vayikra that a Kohen is considered to be an elevated soul, more of a pure, has to live his life on a higher level of purity. He's not allowed to come into contact with a dead body. Right? But there are exceptions. There are 7 exceptions that he's actually he's not even allowed. He's obligated to become defiled for these 7 situations. That's the 7 relatives. 6 of them are blood relatives. The other one's a spouse. Father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, and wife. Those are the. It's interesting. So why is that? Why for those relations? Well, maybe it's too emotionally difficult, but really it's a much deeper understanding. It's because a blood relative of that closeness, and even a spouse, has become part of who he is. So when somebody dies, it's like there's a death within the person. So you can't say, well, he has to separate himself from death, because in these 7 cases, the death is already within him. When it's within him, then there's no concept of separating from death. Part of the person has died. Part of the person has died, then the person has to go and help. And it doesn't help anymore to say, just stay away. There's no stay away. Part of the person has died. That's the idea when a certain blood relatives and a spouse who is already that there's been that fusion of husband and wife, that's like part of the person has died. So let's just recap over here. The question we're trying to understand is, why is it by Torah, the crown on the Aron, which represents the crown of Torah, is it either Zer, which is a crown, or Zar? Ishto it should be Ezer or Kenegdo. Right? Understand that. The idea we're saying at Tshuva, that certain things in terms of the family, there needs to be that package deal. They have to be on the same page. And we see over here also in terms of the understanding, which I think is the key to understanding all of this, is that even though Cohen is supposed to stay away from death, certain things you can't stay away because they're intrinsic. The death occurs within him. I think this is really the key to understanding what's going on here. The Gemara says in Maseches Nida that every Jewish child in utero, there's a malach that comes and teaches them the Torah. Right? They say, upon birth, some say that's the mark over here, I don't know about that, but upon birth, it gets a klap, and he forgets. What's the meaning of that? What does that mean? Right? So I think the understanding is as follows, is that Torah is not an external thing to the Jew. What's telling you is that part of the gestation of the fetus, part of being in utero, it's fused within the Jew. The whole concept of Torah is within a person. It's part of your spiritual DNA. That's what it is. The only thing, it's latent, it's dormant until a person, as they get older, reawakens it. That yearn to learn, that's there. But the idea of it being in utero is telling you this is not an external, Torah is not an external thing to the Jew. Within each of us, it's all within. It's something we have to bring from the inside out as opposed to from the outside in, because it's within us. That's the idea. It's part of who we are. Right? That's the concept of what we'll have in. We see the same idea, by the way, even by husband and wife. The way Chazal describe the union of a husband and wife is that it actually takes place in utero as well. It says that right after conception, an announcement is made that this soul is going to be for this soul. It's actually one soul divided into two that are put into two different people, and this soul is for that soul. Again, the same idea is that the concept of a spouse, it's not something external. The concept of a spouse is that it's a fusion of souls. It's the soul coming back together. Right? I think that's also probably why Adam was created the way he was created. Right? Some say that it was an appendage. Some say it was a division of a part of him. What's the idea? The idea is a wife is not something from the outside and now it's being attached. It's a reattachment. It's the coming back together as one of what was originally as one. It's something that is, in essence, part of who we are.
That's the Kabbalah said, Echad.
Right. But the idea, I think that's why God created man that way. If you created just two, then it would never be one. Yeah. Right. It was one that became two that comes back together as one. Why does that have implications? What's the message? So I think like this. I think that let's give an example I think we can identify with. Sometimes, Rahman al-Islam, a person has an organ failure, needs a transplant. Right? In order to continue living, continue functioning, they need to have some type of transplant. One of the most concerning things to doctors is what? That there should not be rejection. That the organ, whatever it is that's being transplanted, there's special medications, should not be rejection, because sometimes the body doesn't realize that this is here to help the body, and if it doesn't realize it's here to help the body, then it creates antibodies, and it tries to push out. Right? It tries to push out. So, in the best case scenario, it enhances the body's experience. But if it does not see it as enhancing the body's experience, it can just stay there. It doesn't just stay there. What happens is, if it doesn't see it, if the body doesn't recognize it as an enhancement, then the body sees it as something that is here to hurt the body, and then the antibodies kick in and try and reject it. That's true by anything that is intrinsic, internal. Anything that is really part of something that is one. If it's viewed as a benefit, it's going to be embraced. But if it's not viewed as a benefit, because it is part of the essence of what it is, and it's not viewed as a benefit, it's automatically going to be rejected. That's the concept here. Which means as follows. It means is that since Torah is intrinsic to who we are, therefore, if we embrace it, and it's an enhancement, and it develops and gives us satisfaction and gives us everything that we need, then it's going to be a crown. But if the person doesn't see it as such, not just that it's not just dormant, it has the opposite impact. Because it is really part of who he is in essence, but he doesn't embrace it as such, there's automatically, it tries to reject it. It tries to push it out. That creates that negative, that estrangement. That creates that. So it's not just, well, then he doesn't merit. No, it doesn't just stay, he doesn't merit. It literally becomes the enemy. It becomes the enemy. And that's why I believe you have so many of these self-hating Jews. You have these Jews that are out there that it's not parav. There's no parav. It's either, you're on the same team or you're not on the same team. And you're not on the same team, you're on, it's like what did Bush say? Was it Bush? You're either with me or you're against me. That's the way it comes out. But I think that on a total level, we have to understand that, because even within ourselves, we have to recognize if there's something that we're not going to embrace, right? The way we deal with it, we become anti. Even within ourselves. Whether it's certain mitzvahs, whether it's, we become, the most cynical, the Jews can be very, very cynical. And it comes, if you don't see it as something that you are going to embrace, and because deep down inside we know we should be. So if we don't, deep down we know we should be and we're not, so how do we deal with it? We talk into ourselves into that this is the worst thing in the world. So it doesn't have to be just non-religious Jews, religious. There are things even within our own lives that we know we should be doing. But the way we deal with not doing it, it's not just not doing it. The way and it's very hard.
Justify.
What's that? We have to justify. I tell parents all the time, one of the things that we say, we have families at a different levels. What we have to work together is that if we're going to be teaching things at school that at home they're not doing, at least they should be on a level saying is, we're not there yet, we're working towards it, we're growing. Because that's not the norm. What normally happens, shtuyot, that's Baba Mai says, it has the exact opposite of, and that's very hard, because then the kids are completely torn about it. But the understanding is that that's not where we are, but we are working towards it, or acknowledging the fact, acknowledging the fact that it's something that I should be doing and I'm not yet doing. It's difficult, but that's the healthy disposition, because the way otherwise it becomes cynicism and negativity. Let's take it to the next level. It's relationships, it's like that too. It always astounds me to see the negativity involved in most divorces. You see just like literally hatred. How could it be that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they were completely in love, and and now you see it's the same exact thing. Because it's like if something has been part of who you are, then it's not just, okay, it's going to be part of it. There's no such thing as amicable. There's never amicable. Amicable is just for the legal documents. There's no such thing. Because we need to talk ourselves into why this is a bad thing for me. And no one ever wants to blame themselves as what's wrong. So it's always the other person that's wrong. And then the closer the relationship, the more negative the distance will be when that relationship is not functioning. There's no such thing as, well, how are you getting along with your kids? Oh, it's okay. It's not okay. It's either it's great, and if not great, there's a problem. Because the closer there is, the more part of who we are, the thing we're dealing with, it's either you embrace it, and it's an enhancement, or it's a complete estrangement. And I think that's something that, and these things are not, you do it one time and it works. These are continuing 24/7. our commitment to Torah, our commitment to our spouse, our commitment to our children. These things can change in 5 minutes. It requires lifelong dedication to understand what it is that we need to be working on, and understand what it is that, that what is beneficial to us. And listen, sometimes difficult decisions have to make, and there has to be excision, there has to be separation, there has to be things that if they really are not good for us. But in most cases, things that are really good for us, we don't appreciate them being good for us. And then what ends up happening is that we actually talk ourselves into how bad they are for us. And that's where you have this hatred and the negativity and the things that you would not even believe. People that had strong feelings one way for each other have the opposite. You find that it's the word ohev, which is love. Right? Chazal point out the word ohev, you add a yud, what is it? Oyev is enemy. Love, enemy. Because where that love is, it's the same passion. The passion just is either a passion to be together, or the passion is to be apart. It's the same, but it's relationship to it. I think is new here, that's relationship we have with Torah too. It's not, you don't find kids that, I'm not that interested in learning. If you don't like the learning, then you don't want to learn. It's not that, okay, I'll learn that. You're either passionate about it, so when they're younger, we can force them. We can make them do it. Or the grade's important or something like that. But as soon as they're able to make decisions for themselves, and the passion is not there, it's filled with enmity. It's not. There's no middle ground. It's a waste of time. So the being passionate is very, very important. Figure out how to be passionate. Being passionate in all our relationships. If the passion is being lost, that's not okay. It means we have to figure out how to increase that. Because without that, it's not parav. The pendulum swings the other way.
Thank you.